All right, welcome to the first episode, Two Pines and a Prayer. We're sitting here with coffee, and that's probably where it should start is who are we, and so across from me at the other end of like a 12-foot table, because we're super personal and we understand how to record stuff really well, is, I'll let you just introduce yourself.
Conor Van Buskirk. We are sitting in the conference room at Upshot Coffee, which is a project we've been working on for 8 years now, and it's been this fantastic thing that we've been able to establish in Cottleville, and we're kind of looking to grow it. And, you know, this podcast is a part of learning how to outreach people in a different way.
So when you say we, though, it's not me and you. Like, I mean...
No, you're a customer, and we met here, and we've become good friends, and there's many stories behind that, but... we came with this idea of having this DAG blog together. It was kind of essentially just making fun of bloggers. And here we are writing a blog and recording a podcast, essentially saying if you're going to make fun of it, then, prove that you don't suck at it too.
Yeah. I think you can't throw stones when you live in a glass house. And I feel like, hitting record on this is kind of like a first date. Like, you just want to gush and like say everything all in one episode, and you kind of got to be, slow your roll. Don't scare away the customers, if you will. And so we've got people flashing us already. First episode through the glass.
This is my life, bro. Welcome to my life.
Intense environment. So I should introduce myself. My name is Caleb Guns. And yeah, so a patron, that's how I met Conor, obviously. And we noticed, a lot of bloggers, an inordinate amount of bloggers in this area, which is odd because we're in a small area for anybody that might tune into this one day, years from now, and when we're highly mediocre. And we're in the northwestern part of the St. Louis metropolitan. So St. Charles County, Cottleville, which...
west of St. Louis.
Yeah, just west of St. Louis.
Some people say northwest.
I say northwest.
I say when you go 40 west, you exit at Highway 94 and you go right.
Yeah. Okay, so Cottleville, which is a booming small town. Can't buy a house in this area, it seems like, but really you can't. Like, it's tough. But obviously, we saw all the mom bloggers, and we started joking and poking fun. And then, I read a book last year about like.
Wait a minute, you read a book?
Yeah, that's a whole podcast in itself, probably. That's a newer found hobby for me. But I read a book last year, and usually what you fixate on, it's because you're actually insecure about it. And so the more and more we like joked around about bloggers and even mom bloggers, it was like, wait a minute, like I might be a little jealous of them because there's so much help out there for people who accept it and go looking for it. But I don't think like men or dads really have a lot of that, at their fingertips. And I've talked to a lot of people since we've snowballed this way out of control in a short amount of time, and a lot of guys, and they're like, you know what, like you're right. Like, I mean, we probably all have the same problems. We're just really closed off. I mean, even, last night you wrote your first blog last night, which is going to come out on Fridays, which for anybody that listens, you can catch the blogs every Friday, I think, is the scheduled cadence. We'll see if we can keep that.
I'm probably going to write 7 a week.
Okay, so 150% in one direction. That's pretty much sums you up. But you even said after writing your first one last night, and then your second one quickly thereafter, and your wife reading them, she's like, I know more about you from 2 blogs than the last however many years of marriage. So
I wouldn't say I'm a great communicator, Caleb. And
Yeah.
so that's kind of one of the things that intrigued me about this was I tend to love conversation. I tend to love getting to know people. Generally, when I get to know you, I get to know you. You don't get to know me very well, which is probably what my wife was referring to, is we have a lot of interesting conversation. I know a lot about my wife, but I'm fairly closed off when it comes to talking about myself. Myself is kind of a mystery. And so I showed her those first 2 blogs, and even just reading the About Me page. She was like, you realize I learned more from you on these three things than I feel like I've known about you in 17 years of being married and raising kids. And I looked at her and I was like, I could see that.
Yeah, you're right. So there's that. I think that that's pretty normal though for most guys because we grow up a little bit more closed off. We came from you're old, and I'm under this belief, and we can argue about this. This is also something ground rules I guess should be set like in this first podcast and will be set later on probably in the episode is we can argue totally and not agree on things, and it doesn't mean especially in today's climate like. That doesn't mean we're not friends at the end of it. Like, we usually go, because we argue, we find a unifying point within the argument, and we can walk away from it and be like happy. Well, I see your point of view, you see mine. But this will be the first chance you get to like really argue with me is I think, all of us are like that because of the way we're raised and, our dads look to their dads for examples and, so on and so forth, just like our sons are going to look to us for the example. Now, that's a big part of who and what Two Pines and a Prayer is like, for me, I want to continuously learn to be a better person and to learn new things and stay curious so that my son sees that and actually picks up on that behavior versus, he can refine it in his generation, but I want to give him all the tools where I think, if my dad ever listens to this, so I'm sure we'll have outs. Maybe that wasn't the case, but I don't blame him for that because the example he got from his father was one that was a very cold, they're coming out of the World War, like America's Greatest Generation. They were very rigid and not so affectionate, and they worked to provide for their families first, and so 2 generations later now, I'm like, here's the things that I'm going to try and do better at to fix that cycle because, you're either manly man, closed off or the other end of the spectrum now it seems like where there's no guys that are kind of right in the middle, like where it can be the best of both worlds.
I would say I've spent time thinking about this because what you just described is what I always assumed it was. It was women are open and they like to share, and men are closed off and don't like to share. And what I've come to, it's ever evolving, so I'm sure in 6 months I'll disagree with myself immediately. But what I would rest at now is that I think generally I don't talk as much about myself in conversations for 2 reasons. One is I'm not real interested in myself. So when I have a conversation with someone, generally I'm talking to someone because I'm very interested in them and I'm interested in learning their story. And my story doesn't play into your story. And I don't really care about my story. So generally, unless someone pulls it out of me, because I'm not a guy that's going to avoid answering questions. But what I've noticed is I generally want to get everything I can out of someone. And that's enough for them. And they don't necessarily ask me those questions. And if they do, I probably, now that I think about it, I probably a lot of times change the subject because I'm just not interested in me. I'm always interested in learning and I'm interested in people's stories. I've always been interested in reading biographies and watching documentaries and just understanding why people do what they do, what made them who they are. And so naturally, I want to know everything about you, and I don't really care if you know anything about me because that doesn't really teach me anything. And then I think it's a 2-part thing to where the other thing, if I'm being realistic, is I can ask you a million questions and learn everything about you and size you up and understand who you are and create that story. But I also am slightly sensitive at times, and I don't want to be rejected, and I don't want you to know so much about me that you may just don't like me or you use it against me later on. And so I can extract all the information from you that I need to learn while also not putting myself out there to where I'm talking about something that bores me, which is me, and 2, giving you information that I don't think is useful to me.
So I think it's you're probably abnormal in that regard because
absolutely, I would say I'm extremely abnormal, Caleb.
Yeah, a lot of people now will talk about themselves more than ever, and in fact, like to back up your point, like if someone was going to ask a series of questions and never have one volleyed back at them, most people won't even notice that.
No,
like they're so self-absorbed. And that's maybe a harsh term, but that's what we do here. It's okay. where like a lot of people want to talk about themselves. And even like myself, like I've gotten caught in that trap because guess who I don't get to talk about when I'm at home? Nobody asks me at home like how I'm doing, So,
but do you want to talk about it?
No, I mean,
Stacey asks me stuff all the time, and I'm just like, it was good, it was fine.
Yeah, great.
Tell me about your day.
Yeah, it's kind of like when
it's boring to me talking about my day or what I'm doing generally. Like now, if you're someone I'm in business with or someone like we're talking big ideas, then I'm interested. But if it's like, tell me about your 3 meetings and whether you felt like they went well, it's like, I've already processed that. I'm good.
Yeah, well, and it's like when your wife calls you on her way home and she wants to have like this drawn out conversation. You're like, I'm going to see you in like 5 minutes. Can we just talk?
But do you have that conversation when you get home?
Sometimes, yeah.
I'm bad at that too. So, and it's not just my wife. I struggle with calling my dad and having, the conversation that you should have with someone that lives 3 states away once a week as a good son. I'm not interested.
Well, and
all the time. Sometimes I am.
Conversely, is he?
No.
It's a guy thing.
And my mom. I don't call my mom. And when she calls me, oftentimes I find it hard to answer the phone. And it's not because I don't care about what they're doing. It's that generally I'm having a train of thought that I want to follow. And this conversation is going to end that. And it's going to be awkward and slow because we're not involved in the same things anymore. And so it's something that I know that I have to figure out how to work on, is how to be a better communicator. But once again, my mom is not good at it. My dad is not good at it. Neither one of my sisters are good communicators. So it's a family thing where, like, if you leave the 5 Van Buskirks alone, we'll never call each other. The only reason we see each other is because of spouses that go out of their way to make it happen. If you left it up to just us, we'd see each other once a decade, and we'd all be fine with it.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's all upbringing. I mean, I think, that plays into, like, we talk about you as a background, like, you have a lot of irons in the fire as an entrepreneur, and, I always kind of been an employee on your own, working multiple different things at once. I, on the other hand, probably an over-communicator, but I'm in the sales field, so that's, like, something that, like, that works well, and I've been in marketing, for a considerable amount of time as well, where like I'm not the typical salesperson where it's like I'm process driven. I'm quite the opposite, where like I gauge the people I work with and like my stakeholders. I break down their personality, figure out what makes them tick, and then I go in and attack it through our relationship versus like, oh, I'm going to use this method to sales. Like that's never worked. I've sat through 100 of those sales seminars, and every one of them I'm tuning out because I'm like, listen, or you can just go in and like actually ask questions that matter and figure out what makes this person tick. And sometimes there's such, back in the day when I called on bar owners, there's such egotists and, really drawn to attention that in the end, all I did was just flat out ask them, like, what do you need to make this deal happen? Or what really makes you get motivated to make changes? Versus like, oh, I'll figure it out on the fly. Like sometimes just being a dick back to them is exactly what they wanted. And so that's kind of always been my play. Now when we come over to doing the podcast and the blog, like I can go that route totally. But like for me, and I think that like I might have shared this with you, is like it took me 4 attempts to pass English 102 in college. 4 at a junior college. This isn't even like a 4-year major institution. So for me to come in and then write, however many words somewhat consistently and have it coherent and editing, and man, you're just lucky I know sentence structuring at this point, because like that's also something we don't do a ton of. We don't write in this day and age. We send out very succinct messages via email. It's not like we're sitting down and actually organizing thoughts into paragraphs and stream of consciousness. So this has been actually like kind of therapeutic for me, because I feel like it's, intrinsically it's making me smarter, by just like the practice of it all. And I mean, I've got 2 in the bag now, blog wise. You've got 2 in the bag, but yet to be released. I mean, have you found the process to actually be like something where you're like, I feel like, kind of similar, like I get done running 3 or 5 miles, like I feel like I accomplished something. it's the same feeling when I'm getting done like hitting save on these blogs.
It's interesting because it's, I sat down a couple times to write, and the first couple times I had some really good stuff, but it was fairly scattered and went down a lot of rabbit holes that I didn't feel were effective for the first couple times. It was disorganized. And so when I sat down last night, I just said, dude, I just got to get this done. I had the whole Upshot coffee to myself. Lights were turned out, put some music in, and I just cranked out some thoughts that I'd been thinking about. And so within that environment, it was extremely incredible. Now, that being said, I sent it to you, and you had to edit the whole thing because I love run-on sentences. I don't know where commas go. Furthermore, I don't care.
No, and that's so for me.
And if you follow me on Twitter or Instagram, you already know this.
Right. Well, I read it and I totally got it, but I was like, hey, I'm gonna go through this and just laying the ground rules that we haven't talked up to this point since I've edited your blog entry. If there's something you're extremely passionate about, or there was even like a use of one word that I'm like, is his Ivy League education like actually trying to like trump me? Like, because it could go either.
What word was it?
So it's the difference of using a lot or a lot, A-L-L-O-T. And
I never know what to do there.
Yeah. So I was like, I'm pretty sure he means quantity, like an abundance of quantity.
Those are two different things?
Yeah, they are. So
never knew that.
Yeah, me either. But I'm like, I do know that like he went to a pretty decent school, so like maybe he's trying to big league me right now, and I have no idea. But I'm like, if he's passionate about something that he did right, that I've changed, then yeah, I'll put it back. But I do want some sort of like continuity between a blog that I write to you write, because collectively, like, I'd like it to be so seamless that like people are like, unless you use pronouns, I don't know which one of them wrote this. Or as we've talked, we've got like some collective authors that are going to contribute as well, and all of these are just going to be posted under the Two Pines author versus like, this is written by so-and-so and this, and some of them want to stay anonymous too, so like they really want to
We're going to have some anonymous ones.
Yeah, there's going to be some controversial ones as well as funny ones as well. It's like serious. I think up to this point, like the first one was just kind of fluff. Like, I just kind of wrote why we were doing what we were doing. The second one, like, I kind of, labored over it because I think, for me, the new year was like a little bit momentous because, last year was a full year of me working. 2 years ago, I spent every morning in here doing random stuff to get through 90 days of being unemployed for the first time in my life since I was 14 years old. So like it was a little bit midlife crisis-ish where I was like, I need to, I was in here writing thank you notes to people that had been impactful up to this point in my career.
Better question. Are you still writing thank you notes?
So I do occasionally, yeah. But then I was doing, because I had nothing else to do, I think it's a necessity to keep your mind right. So like I was making to-do lists, like you need to do XYZ each day or each week. And so at that point I was doing 5 a week. I even had like personalized stationery made, like to make it like handwritten, because nobody does that anymore. And so I shouldn't say everybody, but I think, so for 12 weeks I sent out 5 a week. And some of those towards the end were to people that were now, come to find out, going to be impactful in my career or in my personal life. Otherwise, they were from the past. The people that were my age or older, they get it. They've experienced the struggle. I heard from every one of them. Like, that was the coolest things. Thanks for the note. It's the younger ones that, like, kind of still take it for granted. And we've been there. I've been there. I know you've been there. Like, I'm still relatively young into the fatherhood role with a almost 5-year-old and an under 1-year-old, where you're down the road a ways.
12 and 14, boys.
Yeah, there's stuff that that you can't even begin to tell me because I haven't lived it, right? Like you just don't know until you know. And so but that act alone of writing the notes, like there's science out there saying that like the act of gratitude changes your brain chemistry. And it really did. I ended up, long story short on the thank you notes, I knew of this job that I wanted in April of that year. and I was working for the other company. I was let go June 11th. Not that I'm bitter and would remember that or anything. By the way, little retribution, 1 year later on June 11th, my son was born. So worst day to best day in 365. And it just was all about timing as to this company that I was like, I think they're exciting. They're within the same realm I'm in. And the guy seems super legitimate. And these were phone calls we were having. Then eventually, while I was laid off, the timing got right. They flew me down to Dallas for a job interview. And I really got a good vibe off of them, even though the one owner was super intimidating. Like, he told me that I scared him and that I belonged working on Wall Street, not in the sales field in what I'm in manufacturing. And I was like, what are you talking about? You know, and he's like, you don't belong here, man. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. But I wrote 3 of those thank you notes on the plane ride home. And it's a whole thing. I've got the stationery. I've got the little like monogrammed wax seal even. And I overnighted those down to them. So when they got to the office, that was a Friday. On Monday morning, I did the by 8 a.m. They were sitting on their desk and they were just absolutely blown away. And my boss now, the president of sales, still has it like in his office. And so it's like a constant reminder that like you can impact things, you know, and people through like these little things. And I think that's where like the podcast for me goes to, is like, this is a chance for me to give back to society all the things I've picked up over the last few years of trials and fatherhood and parenthood. And I'm just, I don't know. I'm an outlet, I guess, at this point. So,
and I think for me, I'd be kidding myself if I didn't say this was completely selfish. I want to talk to people. I want to get to know people. I want to be able to let people know who I am and who we are. And selfishly, I just want to have a way to tell people stories, because that interests me more than really anything else at this point. I love running our business. We're going to grow it. It's a story in itself. But for me, I want to sit down in a spot, and I don't care, you know, we've had this conversation. There's people that I want to get in here with powerful, powerful stories. And if they don't want to attach their name to it, to be able to talk about it so that they can be vulnerable without it affecting their family, their wife, their kids, their job. Like, we may use anonymous names, but I want to get powerful, impactful stories in here and get to know people, and then also be able to share that with anyone that could use it. Because I know that's something that, you know, I've used many times over the years, is whenever I'm just trying to figure out what my next step is or how people do things, I generally find myself listening and reading stories of people that interest me. And through those stories, I'm able to kind of piece together what I think might be a good thing to do, or a good thing. It's entertainment, it's life information, it's everything. So for me, I don't really want to tell you anything that I know. I want to sit here and let the person that I'm talking to, or you, tell us exactly what it is that got them from A to B, so that someone sitting here can find that A interesting, and B may be helpful to their life. And C, I'm sitting here learning everything about you in a vulnerable way, which I can take a ton from.
Yeah, I think that's a big cornerstone to this whole process, is like vulnerability of not only us, but vulnerability with, you know, the people we're going to have on as guests in the coming weeks, and even the writing, like, you know, my New Year blog post, I hadn't even shared my yearly goals with my wife, and most of them involve her as well. It's shared.
Let me tell you something, Caleb. She doesn't care.
Oh no, she did. So, she was actually like, "Oh, these are really good." Like, and you know what? This is how like diminished I am. I didn't even think she would read it. So even though
I didn't even read it, and I'm a part owner of the blog post. And I was like, well, there's a lot of goals here. This seems
I'm over it. That's super. What did our buddies say? Like, you need to get those numbers up. You need to get a faster mile. Like, he who shall not be named on this webcast, because then he'd rub it in our face and ask for royalties. So, I mean, I think for me, like, I'm really excited to get guests in here. I think both of us are starting to come up with ideas, not only stories of, like, you know, overcoming hardships or career goals, but also I'd like to see in any of this, it really is me finding people that are vulnerable and that possibly have some shared commonality with the listener or us that could bring something new to the table. And I mean, it's going to be difficult to continue to find different personalities because I think what we're going to find though is that a lot of us are in the same boat a lot of the time. We've just taken different paths to get there. And so, yeah, the story building up to it is the greatest. But in the end, I mean, and this is the callback to the name is like prayer or wish or whatever you believe. I mean, this isn't a quote-unquote religious podcast. I mean, like, you know, I'm sure by now if anybody's read the blog, they know that, like, I do attend a church and, you know, I am Christian. But we all want the same things for our children. We just get there different ways. We all want the same things for ourselves. We just get there different ways. And sometimes there's some hacks out there on how we can obtain those goals that we weren't aware of, but the more we talk to each other, the more we can come up with those best practices to get there.
Humanize each other.
Yeah. I mean, I'm totally cool with that. I mean, you know, the Bill Gates, yeah, ultra uber billionaire, but still just...
Should that be our new tagline for the podcast?
Yeah, Bill Gates.
Bill Gates, pause, yeah.
Yeah. Still bleeds. You know, still puts on his pants one leg
at
a time.
I don't know. We'd have to verify that. I'm not sure he's human.
I don't know. He
might be a bot.
Bezos, that'd be the scary
AI.
one. Yeah, he's definitely something's going on.
And you're into all that stuff, so you might be AI too.
You never know. I'm pretty close to some of the blood work numbers. So yeah, I mean, you know, we could go into a little bit of the background. So myself, sales, big into biohacking. So I think that, like, you know, always trying something new or trying to push back age, never grow up. I mean, in the past 6 weeks, I've learned how to build a web page, buy domain names, manage that, and, you know, at the same time learn how to record a podcast. I was on another podcast, but I didn't run it. I just had to, like, you know, kind of phone in and they would do everything. So I'm learning on the go and trying to manage all of these different projects that we have going with Two Pines and a Prayer. So that's cool for me because, like, I'm ever curious into, like, learning this stuff. I just never make it a priority. Well, now it's a priority, so I'm going to fall for it and fail forward, I guess. And you know, even your blog that's coming up this week, you talk about, like, failing at a high rate of speed.
Fail fast, man. Just do it. And that was one thing that, like, sitting here talking to you and just part of the reason that this thing actually happened. It's not like we had some grand scheme where, you know, we interviewed each other and we thought, let's build this mega podcast and this blog. And, like, you know, it was literally like, I can't tell you how much of a fan I am of two guys just going, hey, it'd be kind of cool to do this. And then 99.9% of the people that say that to me never follow through.
Yeah.
And so when we kind of, like, this started as a joke and then we're like, let's do it. And then it actually happened. I was like, okay. Because I can't tell you how many times I throw crap at the wall and just say, listen, man, let's get it done. And someone is just, oh, I got a new job, or my wife needs attention, or my kids have got club soccer. And, like, no one ever makes anything happen. Everyone's full of an excuse for why they can't do anything.
Well, if you make it a priority, you get it done. I mean, it's like people that say they don't have time to work out.
Yeah.
Like, you can find a half hour a day, and that will get you in infinitely better shape than doing nothing.
And furthermore, if, you know, I'm on a borrowed mic from my buddy Todd Mueller. I didn't invest anything in this yet. Like, I have a borrowed microphone from my buddy who used to do a podcast. I'm streaming on a MacBook. We're sitting in my coffee shop. There's nothing in this. So for me, it was, you know, just do it. It doesn't cost you anything. It takes effort. And if you're good at it and you love it and people respond to it, then you've started something new. And if it's no good or you're distracted or whatever may happen, you just stop doing it. No one cares.
Yeah, no one cares. And so that's funny you say that because, like, in your world, sweat equity is worth nothing. You're putting sweat equity into it. But I'm similar in that, like, my time, when it comes to my personal life, really is worth zero because I have to do it, right? Like, and so when it came to us in this blog, I was like, eventually, I'm like, man, I have tried to make fun of like this whole like mom blog thing and just bloggers in general for so long. You got to put your money where your mouth is. Like, it's not even an option at this point. You better roll it out. And what's crazy is I've heard from people that I really didn't expect to hear from, because like, it's not like I have a tremendous reach and in fact trying to dwindle my social media imprint, but like people that I didn't think have reached out or started following our social media account and read the blogs and reached out to me via text message, and like very complimentary, and I'm like, holy crap, like this thing could actually be something. And even if it's just masturbation for us.
I got something to tell you. Those are all my Finsta accounts.
Oh, okay, good.
I've created all those to make you feel important, so that when we do this podcast, you've got confidence. No one cares. Those are all. I have 70,000 Finsta accounts.
You really know how to make a guy tick.
And so I do that to build, like everything. Nothing's real.
Oh, yeah. It's all an illusion. I'm not even here right now.
No.
What is that? The Black Swan or whatever it is? Or
sure.
Yeah.
Is that a ballerina movie?
I think so. Yeah, Natalie Portman. I got a thing for her. Well, you know, so you sent me a quote like a week ago that was really good.
What was it?
I don't even remember. Something about writing, and you're like, you know, you need...
Oh, yeah. I retweeted that. You can follow me on Twitter. I have roughly 32 followers, and I retweet brilliant things all the time, like this one that I don't remember. So if you want to follow me, that's at Van B Chocolate, because I used to own a chocolate bar that is now just a coffee shop.
Yeah. It got a little hectic there for a minute. You had like an identity crisis with the business. It was doing a lot of stuff.
I'm good for like, you know, one good tweet a month, and there's probably 4 total. So
a lot of retweeting of third party candidates. So that's well, I sent you one the other night then, and I'm not saying this is art, but I saw the Andy Warhol quote about...
That was a great quote.
Don't think about making art, just get it done. Let everyone else decide if it's good or bad, whether they love it or hate it. While they're deciding, make even more art. And I was like, hell yeah, like, I don't care if people like this podcast. I just want to do it because it's another outreach to this platform that we think we kind of want to create. And if nobody else tunes into it, nobody else tunes into it. But I know that like some of the people we've talked about having on as guests already, I'm super excited about it. I'm intrigued by it, not just because of their story, but like, man, they've got some shit I can learn from. And whether we're recording or not, I want to have that conversation.
I mean, we haven't been cleared to publicly talk about it with our publicists yet, but I you know, Barack Obama is potentially coming.
Yeah.
I would say
huge. That's huge. Big get.
Brad Pitt, local guy.
Yeah, local.
Grew up in Cottleville, Missouri. He's going to come through.
Yeah. I mean, a lesser known fact, because he moved down there by Nick's later on in his child, but Cottleville definitely.
He still calls Cottleville home.
Yeah, I mean,
Joe Rogan's from here, so he's probably going to come back over Christmas.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I heard. He was like, hey, I'll be back over Christmas. I'll meet you at Joe's on 5th Street, 9 o'clock.
And so I'll bring my podcast here. We'll have a conversation.
And I was like, is Jamie coming? He's like, no, I'm going to need you to Google facts that I throw out there really quick when I'm talking about DMT.
So that's going to be your job, because I'm the interesting one.
Yeah, for sure. I'm just going to throw kettlebells with him after the show's over. So, I mean, we do have like some people in mind through our travels.
Real quick.
You got the quote.
Here's the quote I sent you. So it was the best career tip. Start writing publicly. No one will notice at first, which is good. You'll build the habit. You'll find your voice. You'll build a platform slowly, brick by brick. Over 5 to 10 years, you'll build an asset very few have. The opportunities will shock you.
Yeah. I mean,
and that was from Sean Johnson at Intentionally.
Oh, Living Intentionally. That sounds like a Christian book.
That's one of my Finsta accounts.
Okay.
I wrote that quote.
Live intentionally. Do everything with intention. I mean, that's the thing is like you can't have all of the things that you want out of whatever the project is unless you start it. And really, like the most successful people I've met up to this point really had zero thought as to whether or not something was going to be successful or how it would hit people. They weren't caught up in the minutia of it because they were caught up in the goal of like putting it out to the public. Like, I have something that I want to share with mankind. And because of that, because it's their passion to share it, generally it's successful. And so like, that was kind of like for me,
it's not, no one notices.
Yeah, no one notices that. Well, think about it. Nobody notices the restaurant that was open for 90 days and closed.
What was it?
I don't know. There's 100 of them every day. But they will remember the restaurant that was open for 40 years. Like, the history of it. So, but you can't get to 40 years without one day or 1 week or 1 month or 1 year. Like, you got to start somewhere.
Pasta House was built brick by brick is what he's saying.
Yeah, Pasta House. That's one of my burner accounts. At the Pasta House. I mean, I'm excited for what we've got going and coming forward, and if nobody else listens to it, don't care. I mean, like, I know, like, one guy that I threw at you that I was like, I definitely want to talk to. This is an old coworker of mine that's active duty military, left a really good job to go start his SEAL training, and at the same time, he started a little side hustle with some inexpensive clothing, and that clothing company, while he's active, has blown up into a pretty big deal internationally. So, I mean, it's like, his story to me is interesting. We need to share that, and there was a lot along the way that affected him and who he was and how he got to this point in life that I think we need to put out there. And everybody's got a story, right? I mean, some people just reorder the priorities of how things happened in it, though. So,
where are you from, Caleb?
I'm from northwestern Illinois.
Why are you in St. Charles?
Yeah, see, right. Yeah, it's a great story because work brought me here, brought me to St. Louis, and then, you go and knock up your wife and you're like, literally, this gives more glimpses into who I am. Found out we were pregnant with our first child, I don't know, a year and 4 weeks or a year and 6 weeks after we got married. Not like that was planned or anything. Like 1 year, we're going to stay without kids, just enjoy each other, set that foundation. Within 10 days of finding out, I had a house under contract. I'm like, got to set roots, because that's kind of how I was raised. We never moved or anything. I came from a decent-sized family. I had 3 siblings. So, and my parents spread those out. So my older brother was born when they were 19.
Oof.
Yeah, can you imagine that these days at 19? There's no way. I mean, and then my sister was born 2 years later. So by 22, they have 2 small children. And then 8 years after that, I was born. 8 years after that, my little sister was born. So over the course of 18 years, they spread out 4 kids. You know what? I said my dad would probably get angry about some of the things I'll talk about over the course of the podcast. But you got to give my dad all the credit in the world. I'd be a grumpy son of a bee as well. Like if I had 4 kids starting at 19, spread out over 18 years, this guy was just trying to work his way back from behind the 8 ball from the start, paying for
Why
kids.
did he keep doing it?
Why did he keep doing it?
Yeah, why do you have a kid 8 years later and then another kid 8 years later?
I think they were just really good practicing Catholics for the first few.
So it wasn't necessarily they're dying to have another kid every 8 years. It was just the fact that they took the mushrooms, went on a nice ATV ride, things happened, and here we are.
No, I don't think there was any ATVs. We definitely weren't that level of income. I saw Matthew McConaughey's message here lately, his movie The Gentleman coming out. And he
don't ever admit that.
No,
Stop right now.
The true sign of a real gentleman is saying the following things. Why? That's not my story to tell. That's his story to tell. Why the kids came the way they came. I mean, I know some of it, but of course, your dad probably had stuff that he kept to himself as to why things happened. And maybe it'd be great to have my dad in here one day and ask him those questions.
Dude, that's what you should know.
Yeah.
I can tell you my dad overshared everything, so I know way more than I ever wanted to know.
I know where I was conceived even.
Basically, I knew more than, my parents would give you, well, not my parents, my mom just went along for the ride, but my dad would he would hold the family meeting and, reveal things that, you're 8 and you're like, I don't need to know this. Yeah. Like, I just want to go watch cartoons. I don't, this is a little much for me. But he was that guy where he really, had this theory that everyone should be on the same page and everything should be out in the open. And so that probably influences the way that I raise my kid, in that I'm open with him and I'm honest, but I also don't overshare.
Right.
I remember what it's like to be 8 and have a bomb dropped in your lap about some family history, and at 8 you're like, I was thinking about maybe shooting some BBs and watching some cartoons,
right,
and
yeah.
I don't really need to ponder these family things that have been closeted for years.
Well, and that's what we talk about, the refinement part of it. With each generation, you get a little bit you take the best practices of how you were raised and the worst, and you say, this is how I'm going to fix the worst. I can tell you that, I got my work ethic from my dad, very, blue collar. So, we joke about it that I work a hard 6, every day. Even when I used to go to an office, I used to leave here and say, I'm going to go put in a hard 6. And that was 6 hours, including the hour I was going to go to lunch. But in reality, I take very complex situations and make simple decisions that simplify the processes. And so, I've learned to work hard and smart because of the years, but I've learned that from him. I've learned how to, work hard, and then I've also refined it to be able to, break that down and be listen, we can do, what somebody it takes 12 hours to do, I can cram it into 6 hours and be quality at the same time. I also learned, I would never, ever, ever, never trade my rural upbringing, even though at the time it was kind of hard to be the 4-H FFA kid in high school that raised show cattle. But at the same time, again, work ethic. And I remember baling hay at 11 years old and not being able to lift bales and getting paid. This is a whole therapy session, getting paid 5 whole hours by the neighbor for 6.5 hours worth of work. It was offensive because even I was I got $5 for all that. But that's the stuff that you just don't trade. Conversely, my dad, we've already given the disclaimer, 4 kids in 18 years, starting when he was 19. My dad had a horrible temper to where some of that shines on in me at times where but never to the point where I think, you talk about how you spanked your kids until taking their video games or something else was way more effective. I've given one legitimate spanking, and that wasn't even multiple sessions. It was stop. You're being a brat right now. Stop. And I don't even think it fazed her. She doesn't remember, it really didn't slow down the behavior. And that's when I'm this is ineffective. I can remember very, very clearly when I was 3 years old, not even joking, 3 years old, I remember being taken outside of the Catholic church during Mass out on the street because it was an old school church. You go out the door, there's no waiting area. Otherwise the whole place hears it. And my dad explaining to me, if I don't stop crying, he'll give me a reason to cry. And so I'm these are things that I fix with my children. That's not appropriate. Let's have, within reason. They need to know that I'm the alpha. And I lead the house, and what I say goes. But at the same time, we can do that through logical conversation. Sometimes a little louder than others, but that's one of the things that I take away from my dad. That I'm nah, we're never gonna go that route with my kids. So I mean, times change too, though. So.
Dude, for me, I have 2 boys. I think it's different, potentially, and I can't speak for sure, with girls, which your oldest is a girl.
Right, yeah.
But I have 2 boys, and for me, it was very simple. When the talking is done and they're still disrespecting their mother, there was a clear line that had to be drawn in the sand. And so it was a process thing where it was you guys understand why this is wrong, right? You're going to stop doing this. This is your warning, and I don't want to warn you again. And they would do it again. Guys, this is another warning. If we get to a third warning, and we've done the timeout, and you're still doing these things, third warning, you're going to get a spanking. And once I've said that, I've locked myself into following through. Because
otherwise, the example
if you don't follow through, your kids don't listen to you. So if I would have said I'm going to go outside and plant flowers if you do this the third time, and I thought that was effective, I would have had to have done that. However, with boys disrespecting their mother, I felt at that time, the best thing was for me to spank them. Yeah. And, It wasn't something that had to happen very often. I didn't enjoy doing it. I never did it out of anger. And quite honestly, I didn't hit him very hard.
Yeah.
It was just like I said I was going to do this. We're going to do this. And they would cry a little bit, and then they would bounce back and be fine. And then, the next time you said, hey, step 3's coming, they just didn't tend to do it.
There's the difference between punishment to grab attention and punishment to actually punish, like through hurt. And so, a great example on my end. So girls are way different. They're very fragile. So we're going through a very strange period right now where the brain gets overwhelmed when it's tired, and she doesn't know how to properly communicate things. And it's just mass confusion to the point of crying and the whiny high voice for an extended period of time. And I've seen it a couple of times. The other day we had it, and it just so happened my wife just picked up a phone call from her grandmother, was on speakerphone, and my daughter yells, hang up the phone, you're done talking to her, because she had just 5 minutes earlier gotten done talking to her. Well, the grandmother had forgotten to ask something. So she's like, I need help, she's screaming. So I go over to her toy area, and I was like, what do you need help with? And I bend down to help her put something together. It was like a toy that came apart, 2 pieces. And she swung at me. I mean, in legit backhand towards the face. And now, had she landed the strike, would I have been hurt? Probably not. I said, nope. And I just picked her up around the torso, took her upstairs to her room, put her on her bed, and I said, you lay there, you don't come out. I don't care how much noise you make, but you're not allowed to come out. And she carried on, and I went upstairs, and as soon as I opened the door, screaming at me again, I said, listen, you know what? The next time you swing at me, I'm going to swing back, and I assure you I'm not going to miss. And, but would I actually hit my daughter the way she was trying to hit me? Oh, hell no. But it's just more about the attention. And then we had to have a whole nother conversation when she finally did calm down about when you're wrong, you need to admit you're wrong and say you're sorry. And so finally got to a point where she said, I'm sorry. And I said, for what? And then she melts down again. I said, no, you need to verbalize what you're sorry for each time you're sorry. Otherwise, it doesn't mean anything. And so we're trying now. That's the big thing, right? Don't disrespect, again, very similar, you and I, don't disrespect mom. Because of all the people in this house, she's the closest thing you've got to ride or die. I will die for you, but your mom's always going to be there. Always. Where dad's off, in my case, I'm traveling, for work pretty consistently. Mom never leaves. She's always going to be your best friend. And one day, you're going to realize that. And I hope that one day my son can say that, I'm his best friend. But it is really gender specific, So, I mean, it's...
Well, then my wife's screwed because I have 2 boys. So
yeah,
maybe we'll just send her out of the family and just have the 3 of us.
She's just waiting for the kids to get out of the house. She's going to go do her own thing after that. You're going to stay here and keep working, toiling over coffee.
She's decided she's a foster dog parent. So
I've actually seen that. You guys have the dogs.
I've come to realize that my wife loves taking care of things and people, and she is phenomenally gifted in that area. And so now that the kids don't necessarily need her as much, she's just I got dogs everywhere. I mean, I look at her and I'm
time with other hobbies, right?
My hobbies work, so I work. And I read, and I go to the library, and I write, or I read, or I research. I don't really have hobbies so much. When it's nice out, I like to work out and train for the triathlons, but that's been few and far between. So, I come home, and she's got, 17 foster dogs, and, she doesn't need me to do anything. I literally walk in the door, and I'm like, so what's the deal with these dogs? And she's like, you don't have to do anything. And then she grabs 17 leashes and poop bags and walks out the door with the dogs and takes care of them and nurses them back to health and spends all this time with them. And so my wife is really just someone that loves to take care of people and is phenomenally well at it. And now that the kids need less, currently it's going towards stray dogs. Yeah, I have a lot of stray dogs. and by a lot I mean one. I'm a little bit dramatic, and I like to inflate things.
Well, you already have one dog.
I have one dog who's not really a dog. She's more of a stuffed animal, and I really love her for that because she needs no attention. But like when you want to cuddle with her, she's there. So these other dogs are, need a little bit more attention, and I'm not sure I have any attention available.
I don't. It doesn't sound great.
I'm kind of into my own thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing is, like, you can fill your day with so many hobbies on top of your quest for work that, like, there's not any room for play. And I've done that. Like, I like regimen. I like schedules. But I know, like, here a year and a half ago, like, I was so dialed in on everything. I mean, I'm, because of the biohacking and the working out and, I like listening to podcasts when I have a chance. Also, I wanted to get a little bit better at reading actual books as opposed to just listening to them, because there is something, like, in my world, I think it's, something lost about just listening to a book. Like, I want the hard copy in front of me. I want to, like, be scrolling through it. So
don't give me it on an iPad. Don't give me it on a phone. Let me just read a paper book at the library.
Yeah, well, I don't know about the library part. I just buy them on Amazon.
Do you not love the library?
I've been a few times. It's a nice library that we go to.
We're not talking about the build out. We're talking about the fact that you can walk into this.
Well, it's because there's like 6 people
building. You can walk into this building. You can sit down and go, what am I interested in? And you go, I think today I'm going to learn how to make tacos. Or I think I'm going to learn how Vanderbilt, built his empire. And you go to the little library catalog, you type in Vanderbilt. And all of a sudden you got 6 books. You go grab a book, you can learn about anything you want. Now, why the library is not full of 4,000 people with a waiting list every time you turn around, I have no idea. Yeah, but it's like heaven.
It is interesting. I set like the mild goal of reading 12 books this year. And I know I'm more than capable of that because like I took the Jim Quick classes last year on how to like read books quicker and still comprehend them. So it's not like
that sounds like bullshit, dude.
No, it's like it's
that
not,
every time I hear something like that, I'm like, it sounds like bullshit. So why are we taking classes to learn how to read faster instead of just reading a book?
Well, it wasn't so much reading faster as comprehending it as I read, because in his theory, I found it to be true for me, is that our brain's a supercomputer. A lot of us get distracted and start losing like the comprehension part and the retaining of the message because we're reading so slow, because we're distracted by everything else. So the biggest, I'm going to give away all the keys to the castle for Jim Quick here. Like the biggest thing is blocking all that other stuff out through other stimuli. And I know in college, because my ADHD is so flared up, I would not be able to sit down and work unless I had the TV on, I was listening to music and blah, blah, blah. And then I could like, because of all the confusion around me, I was able to then focus in and get done the task at hand. Where like, if I sit down in a quiet space with a book, I'm looking for stimulus. I'm like, oh, what's going on? Or, oh, who's that person? I'm coming up with a whole backstory in my head as to what they do. Or, so it actually worked out really well for me to the point where like I read a whole book, like a 300-page book in like 6 hours on a flight. And I'm like, 50 pages an hour for me is trucking, like where before, I don't even know. The last book I read using those principles, I read it, I figured based off of the speed test that I had initially set, about 30% faster. So 12 books for me isn't a big deal. But yeah, long story short, 12 books. 12 books this year. You're just looking at me like, you skeptic.
I hate this speed reading concept. It drives me nuts.
Well, it's not speed reading. I'm not putting my hand on it and like waving back and forth trying to pick up keywords like that one guy in the 90s did. Like, it's just me trying to read faster to comprehend it, to actually like hold on to it. My brain and your brain and this computer's brain works way faster than what my eyes will move and take in the words. So,
your brain might. Yeah, my brain barely moves at the speed of my eyes, so I stick to what I know.
So you get Rogan Alpha Brain, and then all of a sudden
oh good, I can pay more for some supplements that supposedly help me. I can't wait.
They cannot. They independently researched.
You tried to roofing me the other day. What was that crap you gave me?
I don't even.
NAD.
NAD.
What does that stand for?
Nicotinamide.
Yeah. I felt nothing.
You felt nothing?
No.
I felt a little jazzed after flights because of it. But even if it's a placebo.
But in fairness, I feel nothing most days.
Yeah, I feel dead.
I kind of am dead, just dead.
I'm dead inside.
But you gave me that drug, and I just was like,
it's not. Let's hold on. It's not a narcotic.
I'll just throw this in under. You go, just put it underneath your tongue and let it soak in. I said, what is this for?
You're not.
Are you taking me out for drinks? Are you gonna try and steal my social security number?
I didn't give you blotter acid and be like, hey, put this on.
I didn't know.
I mean, it wouldn't have been a bad play either. I think that whatever.
Listen, I've never been drugged by anyone, which makes me feel unattractive. So I kind of was flattered that someone might actually finally drug me.
Yeah, I didn't get the payoff though. Like I don't even know what my motive.
I got news for you. You can ask my wife. There's no payoff with me.
It's not impressive. You're gonna be okay without it. So yeah, I mean that's for me. Like I just constantly want to be trying those biohacky things though too, and.
You're always looking for an edge, aren't you?
I am, yeah.
Do you believe that you don't have the edge and so you got to find it?
Oh, man, that's deep. That's deep, Stern. Maybe a little bit. And I think that's actually, when people listen to this, depending on when they listen to this, there may be a blog post about that out. There may be one still coming when you do hear this, depending on how quickly I can edit this and put it out and actually make it sound like something I'm halfway proud of for a first attempt.
It needs to be out by tomorrow because I like results.
Okay. You're results driven. We will know more about you too soon. I think I definitely suffer from a little bit of like reassurance. I need reassurance. So I think if I can get all the edges, all of the things will point to me being who I think I'm capable of being. And, again, goes back to the, hey, did your dad not hug you enough when you were a kid? Fuck no, he didn't hug me, and that's probably why I do this.
You know what my dad did? He tried to kiss, he wanted to kiss me goodbye on the lips until I was like 16.
Yeah.
Because he was just, I think he lacked love growing up.
Yeah, so he went over.
And so he went so far the opposite way that he was great in that essence that at bedtime, and I don't do this. I've never done this, but at bedtime he would come in and he would sing a song or read a story, whatever. Like he was very present in that sense. There was a lot of other things, but in that sense, he always wanted to go out of his way when he was present to let you know that he loved you through hugging you, through giving you a kiss, through singing you a song, whatever it was. But, I don't go into my kid's bedroom and sing them a song. And
no.
I hug them. I don't think I kiss them on the lips, so I hope not.
So you talk about the hug thing. Well, yeah,
I would kiss them on the lips though if they were around a bunch of girls that they were trying to impress or friends, because the only thing I do with my kids is essentially to horrify them at their current ages.
Yeah, no, I can't wait for that phase. I can't.
It is the greatest thing ever. My kid, I used to drop him off last year every morning. Now I'm not allowed to. But I would let him out of middle school, and as he's walking away, I roll down the passenger window and scream something like, Daddy loves you, or did you remember your cream for that thing? And he got so bad that I haven't been invited to take him to school in a year now. So I'm guessing, although I laughed hysterically all the way to work, he maybe didn't find it as entertaining at the time.
Yeah, I mean, laughing at the expense of your child is generally frowned upon.
That's the only reason I'm a dad. I'm going to be real honest. Like, they're big into Fortnite now, and so they sit up, my son's got 17 screen computer with his little nerd mic is what I call it, and he gets on there with all his buddies, and they're all screaming and yelling and killing each other. And my favorite thing is to walk up behind him when he's got his headphones on and his mic open and just say something absolutely asinine that will horrify all of his friends on the other side. And so he watches for me now, and he mutes his mic as soon as he sees me step in the room. That's the only reason I come home at night, is to say something into that microphone and horrify him. And then I laugh hysterically. He's completely destroyed, and we go on. And
now he's taking that away from you.
He's not that good yet. But he's starting to look out. He's starting to get out of the way.
Isn't that rite of passage? Isn't that like raising boys? As I've got one that's less than one, still cute and thinks I'm awesome until down the road. I mean, isn't that kind of thing that's a microcosm of what you're trying to teach your son? Be prepared for the people out there that are going to do shit to you. And
not only that, but I think one of the things that's really important to me is just have a good sense of humor. Be able to take a joke, be able to
understand what's important and what's
understand
not.
How to be one of the guys in a way that's not harming. don't be someone that hurts other people in that essence, but learn how to have a good time. Learn how to be one of the guys. Also, one of my pet peeves, and, you know, I touched on it a little bit in this first blog, which if you guys haven't read it yet, you know, that's probably your fault because I've put it out there. But
I'm on the line. I put it on the line.
Just, you know, one of my frustrations in the way that we do everything currently is we really overthink everything.
Yeah.
Like, we have to be oversensitive. We have to be politically correct. We have to be all of these things. And so every little thing that you say potentially upsets someone, even if there's nothing behind it that is meant to hurt anyone. You're just trying to maybe get a laugh or crack a smile or start a dialogue. And, you know, so one of the things I'm teaching my boys is, although you don't want to purposely offend anyone, it's never you're going to go out and say, you know something about them and you're going to make a joke about it and try to intentionally hurt them. But also, guys, like, you know, roll with the punches. Don't get upset about every little thing in life. Don't get, you know, your feelings hurt over every little thing. Like, you're going to be a lot better suited for what's coming at you in the world, at least from my experience. And you're going to be able to go, oh, that was just a joke, and move on. Yeah. And you're also going to be able to have fun with your friends and learn that line of how far you can walk up to it and get your point across while also hopefully not crossing that line to where you're actually hurting anyone.
Well, I think that's very similar to what I'm trying to do with my children. Is like, I want you to be laid back and chill and understand when something's serious versus not. Yep. I think I take it maybe a step further because I'm not paranoid, but I also want them to understand like the evils of the world in time. I'm not like beating that into their head at this age, but like my daughter is already, you know, like they get to a certain age where I want to go over there. No, you can't because there's like somebody could take you. Why would they do that? You know, you just talking about there's bad people in this world and you'll never know who they are. So I'm a little bit more of like the sheepdog effect. Like I'm definitely the protectors of my children and my wife, but at the same time, it's, you know, with both of my kids, girl and boy, like I want to raise them to also be protectors of others as well and not sit in that gender stereotype of like, well, I'm a girl, like I need to marry a protector. No, I want my daughter to be able to choke somebody out if she has to. Like at the same time, be girly and still go to dance class and, you know, all those things. It's super daunting though, because we have so many different things in this world that like you said, we have to be cognizant of. You have to be politically correct. You have to be like sensitive to others' feelings. And how can you, in my world,
those are all good things in theory, but I think they go way too far.
Right.
We all want to be sensitive of everyone's feelings. We all want to not do things intentionally to hurt people. Like we're not saying, guys, go out and be a-holes on purpose just to teach someone a lesson. It's like, you know, be sensitive, but also like be human.
Well, it's balance. You know, balance. Don't be these things have to coexist. Like you can be still very like considerate of someone else's feelings and at the same time still be on the watch out for evil and live in that middle ground where like everything right now is so polarized. So polarized. Like when people, you know, like, you know, you think about like myself, for example, like, you know, if I have a down afternoon during the middle of the week where it's slow and I know that I'm not missing any obligations from a work standpoint, or I just got back from a trip and it's kind of a lay low day, I might go to the gun range. Because like, you know, why have a gun unless you're able to use it at some point in the event that you would need to use it? Where that whole statement I just made right there, some people are going to be like, oh no, I've got this guy pegged. You know, he's a redneck from Missouri, owns firearms, probably gets drunk with his friends. And, you know, there's like this whole
By the way,
list.
all of those are true.
No, not this month. Not this month. Haven't drank in 2020 yet. But that's not the case. I can also be, you know, somebody that takes my daughter to dance class. And I can be somebody that plans date night with my wife once a month. And I can still be the guy that plays dolls with her. It doesn't mean that you're some rednecky type.
What's going through your mind when you're playing dolls with your daughter?
where's she coming up with the storylines usually? Like, because she's got a great imagination. She comes up with these weird names, and I'm like, oh, like her favorite doll right now is named Maribel. Where'd you even hear that name? Like, I mean,
Disney.
Yeah, maybe, probably Disney Plus, getting my $12 a month or whatever. So, I mean, but that's the thing is, like, I think, and this is probably a good place for us to tie up this first episode is like, I think in the end, 2 Pines and a Prayer, parenting, the world, like, it's okay to treat it all like a salad bar, right? You like have all these different options. You can take a little of this, little of this. I don't like that. I do like this. Put it on your plate, and it still adds up to a salad. Like, and in the end, it's still going to be a great salad. But we shouldn't criticize what other people are putting on their plate too. Instead, maybe just enlighten them on why you thought what you had on yours was good.
Yeah, I will say for me personally, when we called it 2 Pines and a Prayer, the 2 Pines came from us hiking together out in Augusta, and we each found a pine. And
a lot of ayahuasca out there.
We did DMT and ayahuasca, and we had a shaman. And
I vomited all over.
I like to vomit when I'm in the woods. I consider it manly.
They go hand in hand.
But anyway, so we named this thing, and this whole thing started at like this expense of maybe, poking fun at blogs and poking fun at people that take themselves super seriously. And, the prayer part, both of us, I think, are people that believe in something bigger.
A higher power, whatever you call it, yeah.
But I also love to poke fun at the scripted religion thing where everyone says the same thing, you follow the same deal. It's okay to say this, it's not okay to say that. You're allowed to believe this, you're not allowed to believe that. You are not allowed to ever ask this question, to someone in the church service ever. So the 2 Pines and a Prayer is a dad blog, the religion, all of that stuff being tied together was kind of these things that I thought oftentimes we take extremely seriously. And at the end of the day, although they're deeply personal to me, and I have a very fluid theory on how I handle that, it's not that big of a deal. Like, love your kids, they'll be fine. Don't cheat on your wife, hopefully she'll stay around.
No guarantees, though.
Yeah, no guarantees.
And if you're like me, you're just planning for the day that she decides to leave anyway. Again, next blog, imposter syndrome.
But it's, it's this kind of duplicity of, these things are extremely important to me, and I spend a lot of time thinking about them, but I also think there's something that people say one thing and do another, and there's a lot of fake BS involved in the way people talk about all of this stuff, probably including me. I mean, I'm probably more full of it than anyone. So it was kind of like this thing where, all right, let's be able to poke fun at these things, even though we actually take family, our spirituality, fatherhood, being a husband, we take it all extremely seriously, but we're also not going to give you the the God is love answer, hopefully.
Yeah, no, I don't think there's ever going to be a canned answer here of like maybe what you think you're going to hear. I mean, there's going to be times like, more ground rules to end the episode. There's going to be times we say things that are highly offensive, but this is the problem with a lot of dads, man. We're just not genuine in who we are. And people pick up on that after a while. So I'm just going to be very like open and honest with all my feedback on this show.
We're all full of crap, man.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, we're all self-important and, because we're the patriarchs and this is how things go. And just because we conceived a child doesn't mean we're shit. And so it'll, I don't know. I'm excited.
I don't want to brag, but I conceived two.
Yeah, I've got at least one, but I know that the Amazon guy there was a lot. He was there a lot, and this was before they were doing like the let yourself in to deliver the package. I mean, he carried something upstairs. I don't know. I showed up and he's like coming from the downstairs. I don't know. I don't think
he was on a first name basis with your wife.
Yeah, I mean he was there every day. I'm like, this is.
Oh, I thought you were going to be in Houston today. How unfortunate.
Or is it?
Were you dropping off something? Yeah, there was a package in there. Your wife already opened. Don't worry.
What is that, old school? Love is taking the early flight home.
And in my case, and the fact that it might complicate my dad, like, oh, good seeing you, buddy. All right. And I go read a book and I would never even ask.
Cool. Probably see you tomorrow. All right? Cool. All right. Well, I think that's a good stopping point for this first episode. And I think the plan for us is every few weeks we're going to try and give you guys something new to listen to. And, like I said, Salad Bar, take it.
Caleb's a little bit soft. My goal is to have multiples a week and multiple blogs a week. Caleb's sitting over there dragging his feet, saying one podcast every 3 weeks.
Hey, man, you can
one podcast every 3 weeks. Would you guys send him a message and just be like, listen, man, if we don't hear something for 3 weeks, we're going to unfollow you because we're already bored.
Focus on the written
Give
word.
us content. We want content. Stop being lazy.
Hashtag content creator.
There's probably
a
pill for that you could take that would force you to create more content with an edge.
So there is a limitless drug that really exists. I just can't get it legally in the U.S. But in Canada, I don't need a prescription. So
I'll go to Canada.
What is it? Modafinil.
Done.
Modafinil.
I'm going
on it. They also sell psilocybin. We can talk
about
this. We can talk about this offline. All right, everybody. So we'll catch up with you guys here in a few weeks, depending on what happens. And thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening to the Two Pines and a Prayer podcast. Be sure to like, rate, and subscribe. Also, check out our blog over at twopinesprayer.com. That's the number 2, pinesprayer.com.